A potential clash between China and Taiwan is a battle for control of the seas. For China, the sea will be used to supply any invading forces or to execute a maritime blockade. For Taiwan, their survival relies on the porcupine strategy, where every nook and crevice of Taiwan hides anti-air and anti-ship weapons, which will take a toll on the invading force. But Taiwan faces a problem. The Chinese Navy has almost 400 modern ships and is continuing to grow. And according to mathematical modeling by American defense analysts, only 1 in 10 Harpoon anti-ship missiles would make it through the short-range air defenses of modern Chinese destroyers. Combine this statistic with the fact that several hits are needed to guarantee a mission kill on a large ship, and it becomes clear that Taiwan needs thousands of anti-ship missiles to mount a defense. And these missiles must be more capable than the Harpoon to make the strategy practical. The United States has long realized this issue and developed its own solution, a highly stealthy anti-ship missile called the LRASM. But the same advanced features which make this missile so potent also prevent it from being sold to Taiwan. So Taiwan has developed its own missile, one far deadlier than the Harpoon. Its name is the Hsiung Feng 3, Taiwanese for brave wind. Before we examine what makes it so capable, let's look at a brief history of these homegrown anti-ship missiles. The first version of the Hsiung Feng was introduced in 1979 and was based on Israel's Gabriel missile, the world's first sea-skimming anti-ship missile. The Gabriel missile underwent a trial by fire during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, where it sunk multiple Soviet-designed and armed ships. While it proved to be a successful design, the shores of the Mediterranean are dwarfed by the vastness of the Pacific, and by 1980, Taiwan recognized the limitations of a missile whose 20-mile range could only take it a quarter of the way across the Taiwan Strait. As seen in this declassified CIA report, this lack of range limited the Hsiung Feng 1 to the short-range defense of minor Taiwanese islands close to mainland China. While the search had begun for a successor with longer legs, convincing Western nations to provide their latest weapons at the height of the Cold War was a tall order. And by the early 1980s, Taiwan had tried and failed to acquire the US Harpoon, French Exocet, and Italian Automat. With no alternatives, Taiwan turned to their National Institute of Technology to create a homegrown weapon with far greater range than its predecessor. In 1990, the Hsiung Feng 2 emerged as a worthy successor, with its turbojet engine allowing for a significantly enhanced range of up to 150 miles and a larger 550-pound warhead. Its improved guidance systems also made the Hsiung Feng 2 more resilient against electronic countermeasures. On paper, these characteristics made it a close match to the US Harpoon, with the current versions of both missiles sharing a similar payload, speed, range, flight profile, and launch weight. But as we discussed earlier, by the early 2000s, the eternal duel between air defenses and aerial targets was turning against the Hsiung Feng 2 and Harpoon, with high-end warships being capable of detecting and engaging incoming missiles far more effectively than in previous decades. That brings us to the supersonic Hsiung Feng 3. Like its predecessor, the missile carries a single 550-pound high-explosive warhead, and it can be launched by ship or ground-based launchers. But that is where the similarities end. Diverging from the modern Western trend of making anti-ship missiles stealthier, the Taiwanese approach to improving the missile's survivability was to make it much faster, with its solid-fuel boosters and liquid-fueled ramjet engine, propelling the Hsiung Feng 3 at a speed of around Mach 2, over twice the speed of the American LRASM and Norwegian Naval Strike Missile. This significantly reduces the amount of time air defenses have to shoot down the missile as it pops over the horizon. Taking the example of a PLA Navy Type 054 frigate, with its radar mounted 150 feet above the waterline, a sea-skimming missile flying at 30 feet would only be detectable once it is within 23 nautical miles. With the Hsiung Feng traveling at Mach 2, the ship would have just 1 minute to detect and engage the missile before impact. This is compared to 2.5 minutes for a subsonic missile. This short window of engagement is complicated by the more advanced countermeasures employed by the missile, with multiple missiles coordinating their approaches to complicate enemy tracking, and the missiles employing high-G evasive maneuvers to avoid close-in weapon systems. When the missile connects with the warship, It employs its payload far more effectively than in previous generations, with a smart fuse delaying detonation until it is above the hull and then blasting the ship with thousands of preformed metal fragments. Impressively, the improved lethality and speed has not come at the expense of range, with it retaining the ability to strike targets at ranges of up to 100 miles away, effectively covering the entire Taiwan Strait. But all of this brings us back to the crux of this video. As impressive as the missile is, Taiwan needs as many missiles as it can get its hands on. So how do they resolve this issue? Well, Taiwan recently announced a $7 billion program to accelerate the production of the Feng 2, Feng 3, and the new Feng 3 extended range, which boasts a claimed range of 250 miles. The program is called the Sea Air Combat Power Improvement Plan and aims to boost production of the Feng 3 to a total of 70 per year until at least 2026, and production of the Feng 2 to 130 a year. By the end of the 5-year program, it is expected that 1,000 new anti-ship missiles would have been produced, along with a purchase of 400 U.S. Harpoon missiles and the several hundred Feng 2 and 3 already in inventory. While a substantial boost to its inventories, it is important to note that a recent wargaming study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that in a U.S.-Chinese conflict in the South China Sea, the United States would burn through 4,450 LRASM anti-ship missiles and their air-to-ground variant in less than 2 weeks, so it could be that a further ramp-up in production is needed. Only time will tell if this will be enough to prevent the catastrophe of a war in the South China Sea. But if any more news does emerge, you can be sure that it will be covered on this channel. Thank you for your time.